Hello, Thomas. You are up first, sir.
Hey, Bart.
And where are you playing out of, sir?
This is out of Caesars, Virginia.
Caesars, Virginia, which is what, that Virginia Beach? What's that place called?
It's in Danville,
Oh, that's right.
Danville, Virginia, just across the border over by like Greensboro, North Carolina.
I remember I had a buddy, an old friend of mine, who used to live in Virginia Beach, and he would have to go to Cherokee, a long way off. And he said, "Oh, I wish they'd get poker around here because there's a big military base there, right?" You get military guys coming in.
Not really. It's a lot of like rich tech guys
Oh,
from the Triangle area,
okay.
so it brings out a pretty good crowd.
All right. And what's the size of the game you're playing in here?
This is 2-5, 1,000 cap. Although we're effective a little bit below that.
And do you guys have a high hand or bad beat jackpot too?
At the time, there wasn't.
Oh, there wasn't. Okay, because I had asked people to send in. I got a lot of responses from that, but a lot of people there's no post-it meme. People have been told that there's no admin fee, but it's not written anywhere, which is kind of interesting. How deep are you for this hand?
So we're 460 with the main villain, and then we get involved with a few other people pre-flop, but 460 is the main stack.
All right, so 460 with the main villain. And if I remember this correctly, this is going to be a little exercise in structured hand analysis and what I like to call poker stove in your head. So let's go over this one. Okay, so start us off here.
Yeah, so we're under the gun with Queen Jack of diamonds.
Okay.
We raised it up to 15, which was pretty much the standard size other than two players who were pretty splashy. One of those splashy guys calls in the low jack.
You're under the gun?
Yeah, under the gun.
Okay.
The low jack calls, one of the splashy players. The small blind calls, another very splashy player, and then the big blind calls as well.
So 4 ways.
Yeah, 4 ways.
So the pot's about $60.
Yep.
Queen Jack of diamonds. Queen Jack of diamonds is actually Queen Jack suited is actually one of my favorite no limit hands because of the fact that you tend to get a little less credit when you have top pair, like when you turn top pair for barreling, but you use like an ace or a king, and those are the ultimate barrel cards. So if you get any type of board like that's like 8 or 9 high or better, 9 high or better, you can turn equity like 9 deuce 3 or something like that. All right, so $60 4 ways.
Yeah, the flop comes out Queen of clubs, 3 of diamonds, 2 of hearts.
All right, so Queen 3 deuce rainbow.
Yep.
So I actually had a hand that I went over on the CLP No Limit videos from this week. It was with Queen 10 though. Sometimes when you get into situations, now this is obviously super multi-way, it's not that draw heavy a board, but when you're opening like the Queen 10 suiteds and the King 10 suiteds, Queen Jack, things like that, sometimes you can flop top pair where it's not really the best kicker. And you can play it a number of different ways. Sometimes you can check, sometimes you can bet small. And then I like to sometimes actually take a bluff catching line and sometimes actually check blank turns to try to get people to stab, especially if I bet small. This is a small stakes game. It's not that draw heavy. You could definitely make a case here for checking, especially with your kicker. I don't mind a bet, but I would probably bet a little bit on the smaller side to try to induce calls.
Yeah, so the small blind and big blind check. I think dynamics wise, I think back to Nate's course in GTO. This is a small bet board, but with 2 players we really want to play a big pot with, I was fine betting 40 here, so 2/3 pot.
So you're making an exploitably larger bet size because you think the small blind and big blind are pretty loose and sticky.
Yeah, if I was online, I could see betting like 20% here, but putting out a $10 bet doesn't really make sense in live poker.
Yeah, I would bet like my small bet here is like 20 or 25 in live poker. But so you've got some reasons why you're betting larger. All right, so you bet 40. Okay.
Yep. So the low jack first act behind us calls.
All right, so the next to act player calls. Okay.
And then the small blind and big blind fold.
All right, so the guys that you want fold out.
The small blind was one of the whales. The low jack was a pretty splashy player.
Okay, the low jack's one of the splashy players. Okay.
Yeah, brand new. Like seemed like he watched vlogs online. Kind of young like me, like 25-ish.
Okay, so the pot's $140 here, but low jack is one of the splashy guys. But that next to act call is fairly strong. just because he really shouldn't be calling with like pocket sixes, pocket sevens next to act, whereas if he closed the action, he could if he was closing the action. Okay, so 140 here to the turn.
Yeah, the turn's the 10 of clubs.
All right, so the 10 of clubs here comes in on the turn, and it puts out a backdoor flush draw. Queen of clubs, 3 of diamonds, deuce of hearts, 10 of clubs, hero with queen jack of diamonds. By the way, this is another hand that you now lose to, which would be queen 10, maybe slivers of pocket 10s that just call, that peel the flop. So it's not really the best card in the world for you here, because this actually brings in some hands that you now lose to that you were ahead on the flop.
Yeah, it's why I think you're not going to like this next part. We bet 75 here, which if we're even going to bet, I don't think it's a great sizing. But I think I should have checked back, looking back on it.
Well,
not check back.
Check from up front. I mean, that was the whole way that I kind of sometimes will shape this hand with, like, if I'm going to bet the flop with top pair, weakish kicker. And now I was giving the example queen 10. Now your hand's like the equivalent of queen 10 because you lose to queen 10 now with queen jack. The thing about it is, if he's super, super splashy, it's probably not the worst play in the world, but I do like checking here a bunch. The thing is that there aren't a lot of draws, though, for him to call that he wants to start like bluffing. Like if the board, like if I was heads up and it was like queen 6-7 with a 2 flush, and I bet queen 10 and he called and the turn was a deuce, those are sometimes spots where I'll check, making it look like I don't have anything, because why am I checking the turn on a brick? And then that will give sometimes the green light for the in-position player to start bluffing with their draws, especially if you bet small on the flop. Here, you had bet 4 ways, turns at 10, you're losing here to queen 10. I probably do check here a bunch. Hero bet 75. Also, too, there's a little bit awkward stack sizes here, too. So you go 75, okay?
Yep. So we go 75 in the low jack immediately without thought, shoves it all in for 405.
For 405.
Yeah.
So
nearly double pot.
So low jack jams for 405. So now this is what I was talking about, how this was going to be a little bit of structured hand analysis and stove in your head. Let's just do the pot odds here. So 75 plus 140 is 215. And another 405 is 620. The total pot size is 620. It looks like you have to call about 330. So you are getting slightly less than 2-1 here, right? 330.
Need to be good a third of the time, roughly.
Yeah, you would probably need something like, because you're getting probably like about 35% equity or so, 34, 35 to break even. And you can just do the math out. I'm actually going to pull it up here on the side just as a calculator. Like you can add the money into the pot. So for example, we said it was what? The pot was 620 and it's 330 for you to call, right? So 620 plus 330 is 950. And then 330 divided by 950, and we'll get the actual equity needed. 34 points. Yeah, 35. Like I said, 34.7%. So that's how you do. That's how you figure out the equity. So, okay, what are some of the hands in his range here? Now, let's think about this here for a second. And we've got a backdoor club draw out there. So let's give him some draws, but he's also going to have some thick slow plays here as well. For the purpose of this, I'm going to assume that let's just do it out, that he doesn't have queen 10 off. Maybe he does, and it's actually worse for you if he has queen 10 off because there's more 2-pair combos. But let's say, there's 6 combos of sets. Now, does he slow play them always? We can't say that, so I kind of tend to give him maybe like 4 combos of sets. There are 2 combos of queen 10 suited because you have one of the queens and the 10 of clubs is out there. Sometimes there's only 1. So that's really like 6 types of like really, really thick value hands. Now you're drawing dead to sets. If he's got queen 10, you've got like 5% equity, something like that. So I'm going to call your equity against his made hands of that category like 2%, like literally something like 2%, almost drawing dead. Now, how many draws can he have and what's the equity for the draws? There's a lot of big combo draws that are basically going to have like something like 14 or 15 outs, which basically means you've got about 66-ish% against the big combo draws. If you had like a 15 out draw, like for example, if you had like 4-5 of clubs, even like ace-4 of clubs, which is a gut shot, because of the overcard, that's like a 15 out draw. So you got 4-5 of clubs, ace-4 of clubs, like ace-5 of clubs, like that's like 3 draws. If you had like a pair plus flush draw, like even like ace-3 of clubs, that's 9, 12, 14. I mean, if we give him 6 really thick value, like 6 value where you're almost drawing dead, I'm saying 2%, but you could say 0. If you found 6 draws where you were, say, at 66%, you could just average 0 and 66 or 2 and 66, average being like equal combos, like 68 divided by 2 is what, like 34? So you don't quite have the equity because I'm giving them equal weighted combos, like 6 value combos and like 6 draws. In reality, it's usually less than that. It's probably less draws than that. It's probably like a ratio of like 4-6, in which case it actually affects the average a little bit because now all of a sudden he's got 6. Yeah, it's about, what is about a 2/3? Yeah, 1.5 to 1. So I don't even think you're getting you're not even really quite getting the odds anyways. Now, if you throw in the fact that he can call sometimes with queen 10 off, now that really shifts you towards a fold because now with 2 queens dead and only 1 10 dead, there's like 6 combos of queen 10. And then if he ever just goes with like ace queen or king queen that he didn't 3-bet off, then you're just getting absolutely murdered. Like if we put in like another 3 combos of king queen or ace queen, and then like another 3 combos of like queen 10, now all of a sudden we went from like 6 value combos to like 10 value combos at least. And then I know how many draws, like even if he had 5 draws now it's like a 2-to-1 type of thing. So now you're looking at like 10 times we're giving you 2% equity, 10 times 2 is 20, and then like 5 times say 66 is what, 330, and then 350 divided by 15. I'm doing this like you can see that you're like in the 20s. You know, you can reduce that down in your head, but that's how I would think about it in my head. So I think it's a fold.
Yeah, I'm looking back on it. Once I finished this session, I started doing the combinatrix in my head, came to a pretty similar conclusion of once you add in the queen 10, which I just wasn't thinking about live, it shifts it from marginal to a clear fold.
And I think the key inflection point, though, too, is that if it's a splashy guy and he's going to call with queen 10 off, it's worse for you. If you're playing a reasonable type of player that won't call raises with queen 10 off, then there's only 2 combos, right, of queen 10 suited. And sometimes there's only one. Like if the 10 was a different suit, like say it was like the 10 of hearts, then there's only one combo of queen 10 suited. So it's either 2 or 1 depending on the distribution of suits. But it seems to me like this guy can have all 6. So
And I think that's sort of how I came to this came to the conclusion I did at the time was I was thinking queen 10 off shouldn't be in his range here, when in reality in live poker that's a hand a villain absolutely shows up here a decent amount of the time with.
By the way, too, that when I was doing that combinatorics out, there's a really easier way to do that in your head. So let's say that we've got 2% equity against his draws and he has 2 times more draws than, 2% equity against his made hands and he's got 2 times more made hands than draws. And we have 2% equity against his made hands. Well, now you can just look at it like three different numbers in the average. 2 plus 2 plus 66 against his draws is 70 divided by 3. And you can see you're like in the low 20s if that was the case. So that's how I would do it really quickly. What did you end up doing?
Yeah, so like I said, I really discounted queen 10 off from the range. So I came to like a 30% number when I needed 34, 35%. I thought with just how weird this guy had been playing, it was worth giving up that little bit in EV, perhaps, because he might be playing just something out of left field. So we think on it for a long time, and ultimately make what's probably a pretty incorrect call, and looking back on it was incorrect. But
So you made the call. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll talk about that I'll gamble in spots like in a capped game where I can get money on the table if there's other deep stacks. But this is a little bit like I think you're really far behind here if you throw in like the queen tens. And again, I didn't. If he's got better kickers though too, you're in a world of hurt. And live players tend to play draws passively as well. Like they might take a more passive line. Some guys might always slow play deuces or threes. Hero calls, and what's the result?
he turns over queen of spades and nine of clubs, one of the few hands we
Wow.
really beat here. Yeah,
Queen of spades, nine of clubs, shoves.
I was
Wow.
shocked to see it turned over.
And you held on the river, I assume?
Yeah, I don't even. I think the river paired the board with a 10, so we held.
So river is a 10 and hero wins. The funny thing here, though, is that even if you gave him all the queen 9 off, right, that means that he's going to play queen 10 off. If you give him all the queen 9 off and all the queen 10 off, and sometimes he's got like king queen, it's still a fold. Like he can still, I mean, this is almost the equivalent to you calling and him showing up with like, ace 5 of clubs or 4 6 of clubs and you winning and you held. Like if you put that in, it's still a fold. So anyways, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much.